Scores of family have been left homeless after a massive storm battered the Ladysmith region in KwaZulu-Natal. 5 people were injured. eNCA's Dasen Thathiah has been following the story. Now, Dasen, it's quite it's riveting stuff, really horrific. Following that massive storm, where are we currently, and how are those individuals that have been affected by the storm dealing and coping with this? As you can imagine, one must be quite shocked at this present moment.
Well, Faith, there was a bit of a scare earlier on in Umbulwane, and that's where we are. It's a few kilometers just outside Ladysmith, and this was the area that was worst affected by that storm that hit last night. And in fact, you're seeing some of the visuals now. The aftermath, this is one of the roads that was flooded during that time yesterday. There's also these light poles that have been hit. They're slanting quite dangerously. But there were teams out here today, along with the KZN Cogta MEC, Nomusa Dube Ngube. And she was out here just assessing the extent of the damage. It is still very much the early stages. And just after they left, there was another freak storm, a thunderstorm, in fact. Lightning struck, and it just lasted for about 30 minutes or so. Now, the interesting thing about that is that residents here say that the storm last night also lasted just about 30 minutes, and immediately after that, where all these homes were damaged, when they looked around, it looked very much like you see now. If you'll just excuse me, Faith, I'm just going to step out of the way. There's a truck coming down the road. But most of these residents here have now been displaced. Some are trying to build their homes, while others have been put up at a local community hall temporarily.
Saying that some are trying to rebuild their homes, but has there been any form of assistance, whether financial or resource-wise, from local government? I mean, fixing one's home after such a major storm is not a laughing matter. It's quite a serious matter, an expensive matter, that is, especially seeing that many of them may even have lost some of their livelihoods during that storm.
Exactly, Faith. In fact, a homeowner, Mduduzi Mzinyane, that I spoke to earlier, was saying just that to me. He says that while he would love to fix his home where he and his 13 family members stay, that's not necessarily possible right now, because he would need large amounts of money to do just that, and also to replace some of the goods that were damaged. He was showing me his mattress and his lounge suite and things like that, things that they need. But more than that, it's things like the school books, the children's uniforms. He says that he doesn't even have clothes to go to work tomorrow. Now, government hasn't necessarily committed to fixing those homes just yet. Like I mentioned, the assessment was just being done today. But there have been other organizations like the Al Imdad Foundation that had come out here. They were also on the ground. They handed out parcels and food packs and other emergency supplies to those that were out here trying to rebuild. Now, remember, when I say rebuild, it's really just to patch up what they can so that they can get some form of shelter just for the evening. It's not an ideal situation to be put up at a community hall, so many of them are hoping that they can at least spend a night in what's left of their homes tonight.
Dasen, one would say that even though it's not even about this evening, as you're speaking, there's a lady that is just standing behind you. She's got a baby on her back. And this just poses a question of, what about school? School starts tomorrow. It's Monday morning. And life is supposed to continue business as usual. But it's not business as usual for these community members. So in that event, in terms of schooling and what is going to be done to ensure that those kids and those families that have been affected, at least there's some form of reparations as they go to school and they prepare for another day or another week. Have we had any form of indication in terms of assistance in that regard?
Well, for now, it seems like there are going to be quite a few children that are going to be missing school. I'm sure as we're speaking, you can hear some of the laughter as kids are playing along the road here nearby. And for many of them, you know, I think just because of their age, they're also a bit oblivious to what's going on and the extent of the damage that they face here. But that is only just one part of the problem, the more immediate reaction, the part about them not probably missing school for the next week or so. But there's a bigger issue here, and that was what the MEC was saying to me earlier, that this community can't actually be here or shouldn't be here because it is a danger zone and there is a risk of flooding. This isn't the first time, and this certainly won't be the last time. So the bigger plan at play here is that government departments are trying to meet to come up with a solution of finding a way to move this community out of here. When I asked the MEC what must then happen, because you can't really just uproot an entire community and expect them to move elsewhere. That's not an overnight process. And she said that it's something that they will have to discuss, because the bottom line is that staying here is a danger to both them, but she also specifically mentioned the children in this community, because there's such a large number.
And obviously then that brings in between the rock and a hard place, because on one side I'm sure government departments are saying, but we said to these community members that they actually cannot be occupying this part of the land, and therefore the reason why there's been a massive storm, they've been so affected by it or gravely affected by it, is simply because they were not heeding to the calls by local government to say, guys, you're not supposed to be, especially in this part of the territory. One would say it's not justifiable, but it's almost understandable why there's a more of a tedious assessment process as opposed to a speedy reaction and a response to the matter, because this is not the first time, as you're rightfully saying, that the community members have been told, don't stay here, it's not safe for you.
Exactly. The other challenge that that government will be facing is that this land, as the MEC was saying to me, is privately owned. So this will also now require some kind of engagement with those landowners, because I imagine that some of them are also collecting rentals from the people that are living here. There's also going to be some resistance from the community themselves. Now, this is not the first community or place where we've seen such a thing. It happens across KwaZulu-Natal. People get comfortable in their homes, understandably, Faith. So there has to be a solution that will be found that will satisfy both this community, but at the same time also keep them safe. And that's going to be an interesting one to watch.
And very lastly, before we let you go, I mean, you were speaking about how people are, they've built their roots, especially around this community, around the area in itself. But following this massive storm that's hit, and following the effects of the storm in itself, in your opinion, and having spoken to some of those community members, are they even open to the suggestion of them going into safer land, or even the suggestion of going to some place that they can house themselves? Because many of them are wondering, I'm sure they're sitting there going, but all of my livelihood and my investments are probably within the property. I mean, there's a pink house just at the back of you. So to imagine that individual would say, I'm going to start all over again in a completely different land, it might be met with some resistance. So would they be open, though?
That's right. From the brief chats that I've actually had with a few residents this afternoon, many of them, or some of them, actually did express some kind of resistance. And the reason for that is because if they were to move, they would want to do it with as little discomfort as possible. As I mentioned, there will always be this kind of resistance. But I think the more pressing concern is, when is the next storm going to hit, and what's going to happen then? This time around, it was 70 homes, almost 400 people that were displaced. The next time, could it be more than that? And one hopes that that doesn't actually happen. But just on that note, Faith, the Department of Cooperative Governance also did issue a warning earlier, saying that there are going to be more storms during the course of the night, both here and in other parts of KwaZulu-Natal as well. So it seems like other communities might also experience something similar. One hopes that that isn't the case, and I hope that everyone tonight is actually safe and takes extra precautions amid these thunderstorms.
Dasen, thank you so much. I know that it's quite a difficult job there to be able to articulate and speak about just what people have been going through, and most importantly, just anticipating that next storm, which may hit even the very same affected area. Dasen, thanks a lot there. Dasen Thathiah, who is out in KwaZulu-Natal, just giving us the latest following that massive storm that has hit the area, and having seen that about 400 people that have been displaced as a result.